are on the doorstep of making the semifinals.
I think anytime that you're a win-or-go-home situation, there's desperation. We got to come out and we've got to play with that sense of urgency. We've got to play with that hunger.
The Indiana Fever just shocked the league. This wasn't just a basketball game, this was survival. This was history clawed back from the edge of despair. And at the very center of it all, Lexi Hull's lightning-quick hands.
This is really good defense that Lexi played here. It is going down. Lexi Hull's guarding her. Ryan goes behind her back. Lexi doesn't touch her because she's backpedaling the whole time.
One split-second steal that ripped Atlanta's season away and catapulted Indiana into the semifinals for the first time since 2015. The roar, the chaos, the disbelief. It was the kind of moment that doesn't just end a game, it defines a franchise.
Y'all are a tough bunch of I mean, I cannot even put into words how proud I am.
But to understand why that single play meant so much, you've got to understand the weight the Fever carried into this night. 10 years. 10 long years without winning a playoff series. That kind of drought isn't just a number on a stat sheet. It sinks into the bones of a team, into the hopes of a city, into the doubts whispered about a franchise's future. Every year fans hoped. Every year they were let down. Until now. This season had every reason to be another disappointment. 6 players out. Caitlin Clark, the most talked about rookie in years, sidelined. Sophie Cunningham, one of the team's emotional leaders, out with injury. Sydney Colson, Chloe Bibby, Ari McDonald, Dernis Dantas, all unavailable. That's not just a dent in the lineup. That's the kind of loss of firepower that kills entire seasons. Pundits laughed off the Fever. They were supposed to fold, but instead, they dug deeper than anyone thought possible. Game 3 against Atlanta wasn't just basketball. It was a gut-check challenge. Winner moves on. Loser goes home. The Dream had the home crowd, nearly 4,000 fans packed in and ready to watch Indiana crumble. But what they got instead was a masterclass in resilience. Kelsey Mitchell came out like she'd been waiting her whole career for this stage. She wasn't tentative, she wasn't nervous, she was locked in, attacking defenders, shrugging off double teams, and putting the team on her back. 19 first-half points. Every single bucket was a message. Indiana was not going quietly. By the time the third quarter rolled around, Mitchell had set the tone so clearly that Atlanta had no choice but to throw bodies at her. Didn't matter. She kept producing, scoring, passing, defending. When the Fever needed a steady pulse, Mitchell's heartbeat carried them. Aliyah Boston wasn't far behind. Just her second year in the league, yet she played like she'd been here a decade. Battling Bree Jones in the post, Boston refused to be bullied. She muscled up rebounds, kept possessions alive, and dropped dimes to her teammates with veteran composure. 14 points, 12 boards, 6 assists. But beyond the numbers, she showed the kind of poise that lifts everyone else. When Boston sealed her defender for a crucial layup late in the fourth, you could see the belief ripple through her teammates. It said, "We belong here." Natasha Howard, Odyssey Sims, Brianna Turner, Ariel Powers. They weren't just role players tonight. They were heroes in their own lanes. Howard clawed for every loose ball, sacrificed her body, and gave Indiana second chances that shouldn't have existed. Sims attacked with fearless bursts, racking up 16 points and 8 assists while playing like she'd been in this system all year long. Turner became the defensive backbone, contesting everything at the rim, making life miserable for Atlanta's stars. Powers, with her hustle and raw energy, sparked momentum swings just by refusing to quit on plays. And then there was Lexie Hull. On paper, it wasn't her night. Shots clanged off the rim, open looks went begging. A shooter's nightmare. But Lexie kept her head down, played defense like her life depended on it, and waited. She stayed locked in, even when everything screamed frustration. And when the final moments arrived, when one play could change everything, she was ready. First came the dagger 3, silencing Atlanta's crowd and lifting her teammates. Then, with just seconds remaining, came the moment of destiny. The inbound floated, Lexie read it like a book, and in one motion she leapt, snatched, and sealed Indiana's first playoff series win in a decade. The arena gasped, the Fever bench erupted, and Sophie Cunningham? She lost her mind. All season long, Sophie has been the fiery spark, the voice that never lets her teammates back down. But being injured meant she had to watch from the sidelines, her jersey swapped for warm-ups, her voice louder than ever. Every possession, she was on her feet, clapping, pointing, shouting encouragement. She wasn't just a spectator, she was fueling the team with energy they desperately needed. When Lexi made that steal, Sophie exploded. She shot up from the bench, fists pumping in the air, screaming like she just hit the shot herself. She pointed at Lexi, eyes wide, shouting, "That's it! That's it!" Her reaction said everything: pride, relief, joy. For a competitor like Sophie, sitting out is agony, but in that moment, she was every bit as much a part of the win as anyone on the floor. After the buzzer, Sophie sprinted onto the court, wrapped Lexi in a massive hug, and nearly lifted her off the ground. She clutched the game ball in her hands like it was solid gold. Cameras caught her laughing, crying, screaming all at once. This wasn't just Lexi's play. This was their play. This was family. And Sophie, sidelined or not, was right in the center of it. In the locker room, Sophie's voice was the loudest in the celebration. Still in warm-ups, she shouted over the music, "We did it! We did it!" She hugged everyone in sight, tears mixing with laughter. Later, she jumped on social media, blasting out an all-caps post, "We got that fever show!" For a player who thrives on intensity, her pride in her teammates was overwhelming. She couldn't stop smiling, she couldn't stop shouting, and fans loved it. Because Sophie wasn't just celebrating a win, she was celebrating resilience, teamwork, and the refusal to quit. Think about what that means. For Sophie, who has built her reputation on toughness and fire, to watch her teammates succeed without her, that's bittersweet. But instead of sulking, she turned it into pure joy. That's leadership. That's family. She lived every second of that game as if she was on the floor, and when history was made, she embraced it like it was her own. That's the heart that makes this Fever team so dangerous. And make no mistake, this wasn't just another playoff game. This was 10 years of frustration snapped in half. The last time the Fever advanced this far, Tamika Catchings was still the franchise cornerstone. Stephanie White was in her first stint as head coach. Natasha Howard was just a rookie. A whole era has passed since then. Fans have been waiting, hoping, suffering, and on this night, all of that was washed away in a flood of joy. You could see it in Kelsey Mitchell's tears as she hugged her teammates. You could see it in Aliyah Boston's stunned smile as confetti rained down. You could see it in Lexie Hull's wide eyes as she clutched the game ball. And yes, you could see it in Sophie Cunningham's laughter, the sound of a leader who knew her team had just rewritten history. The Fever now turned to the Las Vegas Aces, the reigning powerhouse. A team stacked with Aja Wilson, Chelsea Gray, Jackie Young. Becky Hammond's squad isn't just good, they're terrifying, and they're waiting. But here's the thing, Indiana has already beaten the odds. They weren't supposed to survive round 1. They weren't supposed to steal game 3 on the road. They weren't supposed to overcome 6 injuries, yet here they are. Why not believe they can shock the world again? Sophie's energy, even from the bench, will carry into that series. She knows what this team is made of. She's seen them fight through everything, the fouls, the injuries, the doubt, and come out stronger. Her pride in her teammates is fuel. Her voice from the sideline is a spark. And the Fever are marching into the semifinals with belief pounding in their chests. This night will be remembered not just for the steal, not just for the score, but for what it symbolized. Resilience, brotherhood, sisterhood, family, a franchise reborn. Lexi Hull's steal may have sealed the win, but Sophie Cunningham's unfiltered reaction captured the soul of it. This team fights together, celebrates together, and writes history together. Fever fans, take a breath. Savor it. 10 years of waiting are over. The Indiana Fever are back, and they're not here to make up the numbers. They're here to fight. They're here to shock the Giants. They're here to prove that belief, toughness, and unity can topple any obstacle. So tell me, was this just one magical night, or the start of something bigger? If you believe this is the dawn of a new era, drop a comment below. Smash that like button if Sophie's joy and Lexi's steal gave you chills, and hit subscribe, because this story isn't over. The Fever are rolling. Sophie Cunningham is leading in her own way, and history is still being written. The moment Lexi Hull grabbed that steal, time froze. You could almost hear the sound of the ball snapping into her hands over the noise of the crowd. For a split second, every Fever fan held their breath. Then, as she clutched it tight and sprinted down court, the silence shattered into a wall of sound that could have cracked concrete. The bench exploded like fireworks. Players spilled onto the sideline, hugging, screaming, throwing towels into the air. This wasn't just relief, it was ecstasy. Years of frustration released all at once in one singular roar. And if you looked closely at the bench, one figure stood taller than anyone else in her reaction: Sophie Cunningham. She was the first one to leap up, arms spread wide, mouth open in a scream that was equal parts joy and disbelief. She slammed her hands on the scorer's table, turned to the crowd behind her, and yelled, "That's my girl!" Fans right there in the arena saw it live. Sophie wasn't just celebrating a win, she was celebrating the spirit of her team. Sophie's reputation in the league has always been about energy, toughness, and refusing to back down. She's the one who dives into scrums, the one who stares down opponents after a hard foul, the one who sets the emotional tone. And here she was, sidelined by injury, unable to contribute with her body, but finding new ways to lead with her spirit. Her voice was hoarse from yelling, her hands sore from clapping, but she never stopped. Every timeout, every huddle, Sophie was right there, keeping her teammates locked in. That's why when Lexi sealed the game, Sophie's explosion meant so much. It was the reaction of a player who lives for these battles, finally seeing her team conquer the mountain she's been climbing with them all season. Fans online picked up on it instantly. Within minutes, clips of Sophie's wild celebration went viral on social media. One fan tweeted, "Sophie reacted like she hit that steal herself." Another said, "This team has heart. You can see it on Sophie's face. This is family." Even rival fans couldn't help but acknowledge it. Posts started flooding in. This is the kind of culture every franchise wants. Sophie's raw, unfiltered pride became a symbol of what this Indiana team is all about. Everybody invested, everybody pulling in the same direction, whether they're on the court or not. Meanwhile, the players on the floor were soaking in the kind of validation that careers are built on. Kelsey Mitchell, who's been grinding in Indiana year after year without the payoff of playoff glory, finally had her moment. She sat in the locker room afterward, tears streaming down her face, saying it's been a long time coming. This means everything. You could see the weight lifted off her shoulders. Aliyah Boston, so young but already carrying herself like a cornerstone, admitted she could barely sleep the night before because of nerves. Now she could finally exhale, smiling through exhaustion as she talked about how proud she was of her team. And then there was Lexie Hull, holding that game ball like it was a crown jewel. Reporters asked her about the steal, and she said with a laugh, "I was just tired of missing shots. I had to do something right." Humble, understated, but everyone knew the truth. Her defense didn't just win a game, it won a series. Sophie was right behind her in the interview room, interrupting with, "Don't let her fool you, that was legendary." The room cracked up, but you could tell Sophie meant every word. She wasn't going to let her teammate downplay one of the biggest moments in franchise history. For fans, this wasn't just a win, it was a catharsis. Fever Nation had been starving for a reason to believe. The last time they felt this way, Tamika Catchings was still leading the charge, and many of today's fans were kids. Now, a new generation of stars had given them a reason to stand tall again. Social media lit up with fans posting videos of themselves crying, hugging their kids, even honking car horns in the streets of Indianapolis. One fan wrote, "I've waited 10 years for this. Tonight, we're back." Another said, "Lexi Hull just made me believe again." And Sophie Cunningham's reaction? That's what sports are all about. The Fever's journey to this point adds even more weight. This wasn't some polished, powerhouse roster. This was a group duct taped together by necessity, tested by adversity every single week. And that's what makes victories like this sweeter. When you're the underdog, when everyone counts you out, moments like this aren't just wins. They're proof. Proof that heart matters more than hype. Proof that belief can outlast doubt. Proof that resilience can break curses. And speaking of curses, you could feel the ghosts of that playoff drought being exorcised with every cheer. For a decade, Indiana basketball fans had endured disappointment. The Fever weren't just losing, they were irrelevant in the conversation of contenders. That stings, especially for a franchise with a legacy tied to names like Catchings. Tonight, that irrelevance was shattered. Tonight, they planted a flag in the ground that says, "We're back." Of course, now the Fever face the steepest climb yet, the Las Vegas Aces, reigning champions, loaded with MVP-caliber talent in A'ja Wilson, guards like Chelsea Gray and Jackie Young, who can dismantle defenses in their sleep, a coach in Becky Hammon who knows how to win at the highest level. This is the mountain, but here's the twist. After what Indiana just survived, who's to say they can't climb it? They've already been through fire. They've already outlasted doubt. And when you've got nothing to lose, you become the most dangerous opponent. Sophie knows it too. Even from the bench, she's already preparing for that battle. She's seen what Vegas can do, but she's also seen what her teammates are capable of when the chips are down. She'll be the one hyping them in practice, reminding them of what they just accomplished. She'll be the one telling Lexi to trust her instincts, pushing Kelsey to stay aggressive, encouraging Boston to keep owning the paint. That's Sophie's role now. She's the voice that makes sure the fire never fades. And if her reaction to this win is any indication, that fire is burning hotter than ever. There's something poetic about it all. Lexie Hull, a player who struggled to find her rhythm all game, became the hero. Sophie Cunningham, a player who couldn't even step on the court, became the emotional centerpiece. Kelsey Mitchell, long overlooked despite her talent, became the steady star who carried them through. Aliyah Boston, still so early in her career, showed the maturity of a veteran. Every single thread wove together into one perfect tapestry of triumph. And here's the kicker. This wasn't luck. This wasn't fluke. This was earned. Every dive on the floor, every scream from the bench, every possession played like it was the last. That's what created this moment. The Fever didn't stumble into history. They took it. And Sophie's raw, unfiltered joy is the perfect image of what that means. As confetti fell and players hugged, cameras kept cutting back to Sophie. Her hair sticking to her face from sweat, her cheeks red from screaming, her smile stretching ear to ear. She looked like a kid again, watching her dream unfold right in front of her eyes. And maybe that's what made it so special. Because in the end, that's what sports are about. Joy, pride, family. Sophie's reaction wasn't just about a steal. It was about everything it represented. The fight, the belief, the rebirth of a franchise. And as the Fever prepare for the next round, that moment will live on. In highlight reels, in fan memories, in Sophie's smile, in Lexi's steal. It will live on as the night the Indiana Fever stood tall again. The night they proved to the world that no matter how many times you get knocked down, you can always rise. So the story continues. The Fever aren't done. Sophie isn't done. Lexi isn't done. Kelsey, Boston, Sims, Turner, they're all just getting started. And if you thought tonight was emotional, just wait until the next chapter unfolds. Because something tells me, this isn't the end of the story. This is just the beginning.